NFL Week 2 underway. We've got barking dogs. Of course, we're going to hit on those primetime games, including a doubleheader on Monday night. Maybe the deli's back open. We're going to get that steam and teaser report from VR and finish it all off with some best bets. Next up on Bet On It. The comment section complained last week that Marco D'Angelo didn't get to talk for 9 minutes. Kelly Stewart here, Kelly in Vegas. Yanni the Greek _gambler. Marco D'Angelo at Marco in Vegas. So I'm making him go first. I'm making him dissect this Thursday night game. This one's kind of got my brain in a pretzel, Marco. Both of these teams looked fantastic in their week 1 starts. Washington, a 3.5-point underdog at Green Bay. Total 48.5.
Well, Kelly, you stole my opening line about these teams looking great last week, but the team that looked the best was Green Bay, and because who they played. Yeah, Washington looked good last week, but they played the Giants, and even though the Giants was one of those sharp sides, and I'll admit, I was on the Giants last week, it's still the Giants. I think the stock is too high on Green Bay. And I went back and forth whether I was going to use the side or I was going to use the total in this game because I think Green Bay's overpriced. But where I decided and landed in this game is I'm going to look at the total. And I think you're going to see some value this week on the totals because last week there were just a slew of unders in week 1 of the NFL. And after what we saw in the preseason with all of the overs, it reverted back. Well, you know what? History has a way of repeating itself. As we always say, generally speaking, the defenses are ahead of the offenses in week 1 because all of the teams that don't play any starters during the preseason, they're not hitting the ground running. And I'm going to look to the over here in this one in this week because I think everybody's going to have that fresh in their mind about all of the unders. But we've seen that one trend. Remember, Kelly, all those primetime games that we kept playing unders and kept going over? I think it continues here. You've got 2 teams that are non-division teams. It's hard to prepare for a team in a short week. But if you're playing a division rival, you know them. It's easier for preparation. That's not going to be the case for either one of these teams this week. Also, you look at Green Bay, that game that they come off of. The knee-jerk reaction is going to be, if Green Bay held Detroit to 13 points, that prolific Detroit offense that we've seen over the years, what are they going to do to Washington? Washington didn't score a lot of points last week. It was just an inept New York Giant team that kept setting them up in good field position. That's not going to be the case this week. Remember, that was a division game. That was their biggest rival. And, oh, by the way, and we'll see how the season plays out, that Detroit offense did not look good last week. Are they missing something? Yeah, they're missing their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. Let's see how that plays out later. The other part of it was Jared Goff's not mobile. He's a statue back there. They were able to put pressure on him. They come with pressure and they don't get Daniels at first crack. Guess what's going to happen? He's going to be off to the races. He's a mobile quarterback, can beat you with his arm, can beat you with his legs. I think you're going to see both teams score a lot of points in this game. I'm going over the total of 48.5. I think we're going to have a Thursday night shootout. Fun. I do lean to the dog, full disclosure, but I like the over as well. And that's where we're going on the show.
First week overs, 12-4. They were rather impressive towards the under. VR, you've got the Sunday night football game. I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner as well. Let's get into it. Atlanta Falcons, a 5-point underdog at the Minnesota Vikings, 45.5. VR, Minnesota and JJ McCarthy looked abysmal. I had the Bears in teasers on Monday night. I think closing out 4 or 5 of them, sat back. Nothing to worry about. I can't believe I had to sweat that teaser there in the end. Was that more of a Minnesota comeback or more of a Bears defensive fallback?
No, it was the collapse of the Bears. That's what it was. They played awesome in the first half, and then you just saw what the Bears are about in the second half. And that was the difference maker. But, I like to look at teams that actually stock drops off a win or stock improves off a loss, because that happens a lot. And here's a spot where the Vikings stock actually drops off that win, because exactly what you touched on. Like they more or less got lucky to get that win. But I look at it from the perspective of now they have some momentum. You played that badly, and yet you still won a game against a division rival, which is huge. So I think this week, they're up. That team's up. They're feeling good about themselves. Falcons, on the flip side, is the opposite. You lost a really tight game against a division rival that you're going to be battling to win the division. And more importantly, you had a quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. who played above what we expect. And I expect a regression. He had a 93, 95 quarterback rating. No interceptions, nice completion percentage. I just don't think that's going to happen against the Minnesota Vikings. And what the Falcons, where they could attack them, is in that vertical passing game. But I just don't think they're going to have success because of the pressure Vikings are going to be able to bring. If they could bring that pressure to Penix and they have trouble extending the field, like having those wide receivers run those long routes and have some big plays, I don't think they're going to be able to systematically beat the Vikings, break them down. That's not going to happen. I like Minnesota on offense. I like Minnesota on defense as well. I just think they have all the advantages here. They know what they have to do to beat Atlanta. I haven't bet it yet. Want to see where this line kind of settles, and 5's one of those dead numbers, one way or the other. We'll see if the market gets me involved. But I just think Minnesota's the right side. Again, I think it's a team whose stock dropped after a win. But as expected, they were a top team, 14-win team last year, and they looked the part again this year. So I think it's Minnesota or pass for me.
The first game of the Monday Night Football doubleheader, Tampa Bay catching 2.5 at Houston, total 42.5. Look, hand up, I don't love this game. I think you could argue the Bucs were lucky that Atlanta missed that field goal, but Baker did have a really substantial game-winning drive prior to that, and then they missed the PAT. That is my feelings on that game. Let's talk about the Houston Texans. They turned the ball over twice, 11 penalties, and then went 2 for 9 on third down. Better quarterback here, I would argue, is Baker Mayfield, and I would say that I don't trust this offensive line to keep CJ Stroud upright. We got a better defense here on the road, plus the points. I think the obvious answer here is low total, teasing Tampa up over a touchdown. Give me Tampa Bay here, and I will get you guys a second leg. Marco's got a nice segment here in the deli that I may be looking at, and we'll talk to VR up here shortly about those teaser spots. And Marco gets to break down the second Monday Night Football game. That's why we got a doubleheader on Monday night, the late game. Hopefully I'm in bed for this one. 10 p.m. Eastern there on Monday Night Football. Chargers 3.5-point favorite now at the Las Vegas Raiders. Total 46.5. Marco, do you like the hometown team here?
Well, Kelly, this is a division game and it's a Monday night game. So you wouldn't expect, either team to be flat or looking ahead. But I have to point out the obvious. The Chargers are coming off a gigantic win, upsetting the Chiefs. That was as big of an opening week win as you could possibly have. Not only did the Chargers give up a home game playing in Brazil last week, but the NFL, which for whatever reason made them give up a home game that was a division game. That was a huge disadvantage for the Chargers, and they overcame it, beat the Chiefs. Now, off that gigantic win, you're asking them to go on the road for a second week in a row. Yeah, it's a division game. I get it. It's the Raiders. It's Monday Night Football. But it's Monday night home opener for the Raiders. Not only is it the Monday night home opener, it's the first home game regular season for their new head coach, Pete Carroll. The question's going to be coming into the season. The narrative by everybody was that the Kansas City Chiefs have taken a step backwards and that the Chargers and the Broncos have closed the gap. But the big thing was which one of those two teams was going to be that team that took the step to overcome and dethrone the crown from Kansas City. So even though this is a division game, look at who the Chargers play next week in their true home opener. It's the Denver Broncos. To me, this is a horrible scheduling spot. I am going to look to the Raiders getting the points. I think the stock is as high as it can be on the Chargers. It was a lot of hype coming into the season. Justin Herbert looked absolutely fantastic in that first game. I just can't see them doing that for 2 weeks in a row. And here's a little angle I have, and I know the comment section is going to go wild. Let me know. Go ahead. Give it to me if you want. But week 2 is the trickiest week of the season for bettors because so many people are going to look at week 1 and they're going to overreact to what they saw in 1 week. Or they're going to do this. And I hear it all the time when I'm in the sports books or if I'm sitting at a poker table listening to John Q. Public talking, they'll say, oh, this team can't start the season 0-2. There's no way they're going to lose both games to start the season because everybody knows the history of teams that lose both games and how hard it is to make the playoffs. But there's also a flip side to that. There's going to be a team or two that's going to be a major surprise that starts the season at 2-0. And that team that's going to be a surprise is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, it would be no surprise for the Chargers to be 2-0, but it would be a big surprise for the Raiders. And I'm going to go with that. I think they're undervalued in this one. Let's take the dog plus the points. And I know, Kelly, you love primetime, home dogs. Throw in it. It's a division game. It's Vegas. This game starts late. Let's go ahead and take the Raiders.
Can't wait to wake up a winner. Guys, get your notepads out and your pens ready. The Steam report is coming in hot. And then VR, when you get done with that, I have a couple other things I want to talk about, including those teasers you give out every single Sunday morning on Last Call. oddslogic.com/Kelly in Vegas. If you guys are looking for a 1-week free trial, you guys can check out all of the line movement. You can check out injury reports, weather, so forth. You're going to get up-to-date automatic refresh on your screen. I have mine on, and sometimes it scares the shit out of me because it dings so loud when a line is moving or a game has ended. So be careful with that one. VR, get it ready. Guys, I'm going to let the dog off the leash. Let him roll.
All right, we got a lot of moves in week 2. Let's not forget, this is one of the biggest adjustment weeks based off of one game and a lot of overreactions. That's why you're seeing a lot of movement, especially off the look ahead. Remember, there's a look ahead line where lines are posted 2 weeks in advance. In fact, this whole season, you could bet more or less. And then they start getting bet into, and then you'll see a line settle. And here's what I'm talking about. We saw with Green Bay, opens up -2.5, gets bet up through that key number, and that's when you saw the Washington money come in. So you have sharps on both sides of that game. Green Bay at -2.5 and Washington +4. Now move on to Sunday's action. New England +2.5 and under 45. 253, Jacksonville plus the 5.5. And 4.5 all the way down. Cleveland +13 and +12.5. 258, Dallas -3, Dallas -4, Dallas -4.5, and Dallas -5. Remember, the look ahead was really low on some of these. That's why you're seeing some major adjustments. 262, New York Jets +8.5 all the way down the key number of +7. 264, under 48.5 and 48, Chicago, Detroit. 272, Indianapolis Colts +2.5 /money line as well. 278, they went under 46.5. That was the look ahead. Then they posted 44.5. That got hit under as well, all the way down to under 42.5. Dropped to 41.5. That's where you started seeing over money. It seems like it's settling around that 42.5, 43 range. So you have steam at under 44.5. Steam at over 41.5. Not much money came in at that look ahead at 46.5. Remember, the limits are low. And finally, Vegas Chargers over seems to get out ahead of the public there. That's already betting that game over. They went over 45.5 and over 46 in the Chargers and the Raiders on Monday night. Early still, it's only Wednesday, but those are some of the moves that got hit immediately after week 1 games.
RVR, I happened to catch your segment Monday on Wager Talk today. It's also posted up on the Wager Talk Instagram channel regarding teasers. So one of the things that I think we started 2 years ago now on Last Call when I was hosting, now Errol Epstein hosting on Sundays for me, was, hey, we're going to bet the closing line teasers because the closing line is the sharpest. So if something moves to 3, something closes 1, they're no longer an underdog teaser value, or getting up over that 9, whatever it may be. That takes it out of that Wong teaser. Can you kind of break down the method to the madness? Last week, I had already bet it. I couldn't wait. Saturday, I put the Lions in a teaser. I came back on Sunday. I had a bunch of Packers fans at my house. I said, I'm going to try to middle this game. Got too greedy. But that was the only teaser leg that was Wongable that lost. The total was probably a little too high for me to be wonging it anyway. Talk about teasers from week 1 and maybe some spots we have circled here for week number 2.
Yeah, Detroit was our only loser on our teasers. I narrowed it down to 5 of them about 10 minutes before kickoff, and 4 of those got the money. The reason I'm betting against the closing line, and I know there's even sharps that'll argue this, but it's worked out for me. I don't have a big enough sample size to have statistical significance, but what I can tell you is over the last 2 now plus seasons, this has worked out best. Because with a teaser, you only cash a teaser if the game lands near the number. The highest probability of the game landing near the number is when the number is its sharpest. We know that the number is its most efficient at the close because all the information's already been factored into that price. So that's why sometimes, like you touched on, a team could be +3. I'm not going to tease them. But come 15 minutes before game time, if that dog gets steamed down to where I'm now getting them at +2, +1.5, now I will use the teaser. Because again, I can't get the 3. That's gone. But now I can get the 3 and I can go through the next big key number of 7 by teasing it. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those sharp moves that maybe the number's no longer available, but now it's teasable for us. Because again, the goal is to go through the numbers 3, 6, 7. The goal is to not lay more than 125. And the goal is to only bet those numbers, not the teams. The teams are irrelevant. I could be against that team on a straight bet. The only thing we're doing is teasing those numbers because that has proven to give us about a 2% edge over the books if we're able to lay -120. That's what you want to aim for, laying that -120. I know there's still available out there 6-point teasers for -120. But if you're laying -130s, don't even do it. You're better off straight betting. Those aren't beatable. You're now no longer plus EV. Stay away from 6.5, 7-point teasers because they're never priced right. For a while, there were 10-point teasers where there was some value on even some 6-point teasers on 6-team teasers that, they were mispriced. But books have really cleaned that up because teasers become so popular that now you just got to focus on 6-point teasers, lay 125 or better, go through 3, 6, 7, bet it versus the closing number, and you'll do just fine. You'll cash more than you trash. When the season's over, you'll have made some money.
Damn it, damn it, damn it. I said during the Barking Dog segment, the game that Marco gave out I thought was teasable. Now I'm looking at my odds screen, and just what VR said there on the teasers, it is now moving out of that position. Seattle now catching 3, Marco. Barking Dog says, hey, I want a dog that has a shot to win outright. Why do you like them this week against your Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, we went against the Steelers last week, and boy, for Marco, that was like the perfect ending to a game. I had the Jets +2.5, and the Steelers still won the game, but I cashed my ticket. Talk about an emotional hedge. That was it. But let's be serious now, okay? Have you heard more ad nauseum about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers from last week? All you heard about was 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Everybody is just chugging the Kool-Aid here in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers after one performance. You know what nobody's talking about, though? How about the fact that the Jets put up 32 points on the Steelers?
Yes.
And went up and down the field with Justin Fields. I told you Justin Fields was going to have a big game last week. He had something to prove. I told you back when we did the preview in August, when we went through the divisions, I said, I am going to look for spots early in the season to go against the Steelers because they're not going to be priced right. This is one of them. Again, all right. In this one, I'll be honest with you. I considered putting this in as a trap game for that segment, but we're using something else because we've got a great sandwich situation. Green, look at it. You're looking at the Steelers -3 at home after they put up all those points last week. And then you've got Seattle traveling cross country. The Steelers are only a 3-point favorite with all of the hype of the Steelers. And remember, the Steelers still made the playoffs last year with Russell Wilson. They got trounced in the first round, but they made the playoffs. They're only a 3-point favorite. If this was a neutral field, you're going to tell me with all the hype that Pittsburgh really would be a pick 'em? That's, what they're telling you here in this game. That smells fishy as hell. I like Seattle. I think they can actually go in there and beat Pittsburgh. Seattle played well against San Francisco last week, and they were actually driving at the end of the game deep in San Francisco territory in a 17-13 game, had a chance to win that game. An untimely fumble by Sam Darnold and cost them the game. If he has a clean game this week, if Justin Fields was able to move the ball the way they did last week, I think Seattle is going to go in and ruin the home opener for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me Seattle plus the points in this one. I'd be happy. I'm calling it 20-17 Seattle, but if we get Pittsburgh 21-20, I'll be okay with that as well.
All right. Marco's looking to thread the needle once again with his team. VR, you're making me a little nervous. Looking at your spreadsheet here, and you like the Carolina Panthers as your barking dog. I know my team and I, and some of my solo entries, have the Arizona Cardinals slated for this week. Should we be worried for survivor backers?
Everybody does. And here's the bottom line. I'm going to tell you now, Carolina is the worst team in the NFL. Power rating wise, there's nobody worse than Carolina right now. But with that said, there's still not this many points worse than Arizona at home, which has basically less than a 1.67 home field advantage at that. Bottom line, Bryce Young's getting better and better. And they just, Arizona doesn't have the defense to just completely shut them down. If you're not able to put pressure on Bryce Young and that Carolina offensive line holds, he finds his rhythm, this team's just going to be fine as far as putting up points. Now, the key is, can they contain Kyler Murray and that offense? That's the bottom line. And I think they can. Check the injury report, make sure J.C. Horn's playing, because that's who they're going to have on Harrison. If he's one-on-one on Harrison, I like my chances of them slowing down Arizona. Again, this is going to be one of the most teased sides in Arizona. So you may want to wait a little bit in case they do add that teaser protection, because I am seeing some 6.5s out there. So obviously Sharp picked off the 7s. That's why, the sharper books don't have 7 anymore. But with all that said, the public hasn't spoken yet. That money from the public's not coming in until Sunday. Rest assured. They have all of college football. They have primetime action on Thursday and Friday. They have college football on Saturday. They have MMA and the Canelo fight on Saturday night. They're not already locking up a lot of their cash in the NFL. When they do, rest assured, Arizona will be one of the most one-sided bet games and one of the most one-sided teased sides as well. And it's a terrible teaser right now. Like anyone teasing it down from 6.5 or 7 down to -1, -0.5, it's a terrible teaser. You're better off laying the points. Again, I don't care if it helps you and it cashes where they only win by 3. It's still a terrible teaser. I didn't give one out. You talked about it before. I forgot. But the best teaser right now is Indianapolis. Take the Colts up. And wait till Sunday to see what happens there. But that's the perfect teaser. You got a home team. You have a total that's being steamed to the under from 44 down to 42. So less points are expected. Less points means each point's worth more. And you're going through 3, 6, and 7. So if you want to use a teaser, look at teasers like that, like on the Colts. But getting back to the Carolina side, again, the key is, can they keep it within the number? And that's what I'm looking at. I don't think they win this one outright, but I do think that back door stays open. And against a secondary like Arizona's, I do think Carolina is going to be able to move the football. And again, if they could keep it within 2 scores, within 10, 13 points, we're live at the end of the game. So give me Carolina, give me the 7 points, and see if we could cash a nice barking dog.
Woo! Talking about teasers, I considered the Cincinnati Bengals this week, and that was until I started reminding myself how awful this team is in the month of September. Cincinnati 2-9 straight up, 3-8 against the spread weeks 1 and 2 of the season. Cincinnati narrowly escaped for their survivor backers last week in Cleveland. Boy, oh boy, does it Jacksonville look attractive this week. And that's why I think they have an opportunity to go in there and win this game outright. They had a lot of nice plays against the Panthers last week. VR just told you, Panthers, one of the worst power-rated teams in the NFL. Defense forced 3 turnovers. And I think that they're going to do the same thing against Cincinnati here this week. They've got to stop being penalized. 11 flags thrown in their way, 93 yards, and of course, Trevor Lawrence with the turnover as well. If they can play cleaner, they can go in and beat the Bengals on the road. I like the 3.5 here. Cincinnati is now off my survivor list. I do not trust this team. I think Jacksonville looks like a more complete team, at least here in September. Marco D'Angelo, it's about lunchtime here on the East Coast, and that means I'm getting hungry. Is the deli back open this week? I know it has been absolutely on fire in college football.
Yeah, Kelly, check out if you like these segments that I do, the sandwich spots, the trap games. I do a bonus show. I only give you, one in each category here on the show, but I do Marco's Deli. It'll come out Thursday night or early Friday morning each week, and we break down several other games. I tell you the situations. Last week we had 5 games. We went 4-1. And, I'll tell you, and I love the comments. I like you guys jumping in. But you guys always come in and say, how can you take this team? They're ugly. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get a lot of ugly-looking games. That's why they fit in there. It's a sandwich spot. The other team's going to be looking past them, or it's a trap game. We're not going to be coming up with all the marquee teams. You're not going to have me telling you to take, this top 25 favorite in a route. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the bad spots where a team is going to be overpriced and maybe not totally focused on their opponent. With that said, let's segue into the deli. And Kelly, this is one of those ones where you're going to say it's a stinky one and you might have to hold your nose, but that's okay. We can do it. Just breathe, go to the window, say the team, whisper it if you don't want anybody else to hear that you're betting them, but we're taking the Tennessee Titans this week. And this is one of those spots where I'll be honest, I am betting Tennessee, but I'm just as much betting against the Rams in this game. When you look at this, you've got a home underdog, and yes, Tennessee's offense was horrible last week, but we know the stats. We know that rookie quarterbacks, especially number 1 drafted rookie quarterbacks, their first start is abysmal. And he was last week. The offense couldn't move. But they were going against a pretty damn good defense in the Denver Broncos. I put the Denver Broncos top 5 category defensively. They are an elite defense, and that's what got them the win because their offense did not help them at all last week, Denver. And we'll talk about them later in the show. But this is a spot. Look at the Rams. They were life and death last week against Houston. They weren't impressive. Slow start. We've seen this before from McVay's teams because he doesn't play the starters in the preseason. And we know that Bradford's just a hit away from, getting knocked out of a game with his bad back and everything else. But I can't help. You're traveling across country week 2 to play a team that looked abysmal offensively last week. You could probably say, hey, we just got to show up and we're going to win. But where I'm really looking at this is the sandwich spot of it. Look at who the Rams play next week. They play the Philadelphia Eagles. And I tell you, there's certain revenge spots that you've got to circle. And I've had this one circled when I looked at the schedules back in July, as we do. We go through and circle spots so you don't forget them. Who ended the Rams season last year? It was Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, in a game that the Rams were getting beat badly, but at the end had a chance to win that game and came up short. they're going to be looking ahead to next week. I'm going to take Tennessee at home, and this will be an ugly one, low-scoring game. Let's take Tennessee 17-16 as my sandwich game this week in the deli. Hopefully the health department doesn't come and close me down after week 2 with food poisoning.
Hey, I'll give that Titans defense a ton of credit. They were able to exploit Bo Nix last week. Marco, that deli sandwich is not as bad as you think. You've definitely had way worse ones. All right, guys, we're going to get into the best bets. That's what you guys are all here for. If you have not given us that thumbs up or jumped in the comments section yet, you are behind. VR, your best bet for week 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, Marco nailed it with, I like both his games, actually. But I really like the Seattle side over Pittsburgh. If you look at the box score for Pittsburgh and the Jets, again, you never want to get overreaction off of one game. But they got outplayed pretty much everywhere by the Jets. It's just the final score where, there was a little luck involved on the Pittsburgh side. But I love what Marco pointed out, just how many points they allowed. And Seattle, that's what they're going to need, a soft defense, because defensively, they were impressive against San Francisco. They held San Francisco to 20 points, 17 points, and they had 3 fumbles. They fumbled the ball 3 times, lost 2 of those, and yet that defense forced 2 interceptions by Purdy. And like I said, held them to only 17 points. If they could create some problems for the Steeler offense, which I think they will, then offensively, I think Seattle's going to do just fine. Again, they underwhelmed in week 1 with Sam Darnold, but I think they're not facing a San Francisco type of defense this week. So if anything, that was a good thing, going up against that much resistance and now going up against a Steeler defense, which is banged up. Look at that injury report. They're losing a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball, and they're not really deep. And so I think Seattle's going to have success on the offensive side. And like I said, defensively, look for them to shut down the Steelers a lot better than the Jets did. They could keep this within 3 for sure, but I like the money line. It's a sprinkle for me. This one I did release to subscribers. I did take the 3 with Seattle. That one is a premium play. I think out of the 3 that I released, that's the only one so far we fired on. But I like Seattle a lot. Sprinkle that money line. They give Pittsburgh their loss.
Awesome stuff, VR. Before we move on to Marco, can you let everybody know what you've got up for the second week of the NFL over at wagertalk.com?
Indeed. I have my NFL package with 4% best bets. We'll see if a 5% jumps out at us. We never force those. If that package is up, we're number 1 right now, combined college football, NFL 2025. It's early, but so far so good out of the gate. And we'll have the steam room on Sunday as well. It's for subscribers only, 30 days or more. You get to come in there leading up to kickoff of the first batch of games. We go over each and every game, cover sides, total, player props, all the lives, the stuff that's coming in while we're live as well. And of course, those teasers towards the end. So ton of value. And more importantly, the results, numbers are speaking for themselves. We're hot right now. I'm working with the best groups I have in a really long time. And just feeling like in the zone. This is a good time.
Oh, Marco, I know it's overreaction week. Are we overreacting to how good the Indianapolis Colts looked?
Well, Kelly, I think it's a combination of both, how good the Colts looked and how bad Denver looked and was, lucky to get out of there with the win. I got to tell you, I know that was a popular game in Survivor last week, was the Denver Broncos. How were people feeling that had the Denver Broncos when that score was 13-12 in the 4th quarter, and Sean Payton decides to go on 4th and 1 in his own territory at the 46-yard line and get stopped turning the ball over to Tennessee? I am sure there was a lot of people's hearts that stopped at that. But that's why I like Denver this week. They had that first week scare, and we talked about it. Denver is a team that had a lot of hype coming into this season because of the jump they made last year in year 2 with Sean Payton. Bo Nix, rookie quarterback. Hey, you know what? He looked like, we said, be careful with all these rookie quarterbacks that looked good last year. Don't assume it's going to be a progression automatically the next year. And what happened? Well, Bo Nix had a bad game. Okay. The Denver offense did have 317 yards. They should have had way more. Why did they only have 317 yards? Because they gave the ball away 4 times. You give away 4 possessions, that's going to hurt your total yardage. But their defense was stout. Now, part of it was going against a rookie quarterback for Tennessee, but we know this defense from last year, how good they were. I talked about the Chargers having a look-ahead spot. The Chargers were coming off a satisfying win and are going to a game where they got the look-ahead spot to Denver. So why do I not think Denver will look ahead here to the Chargers? Because they played so poorly last week. I've told you time and time again, teams that are big favorites, that have the scare, I love to look at them in the next week because you're going to get value in the line and you're also going to get a very focused team. The Colts were the biggest surprise of the week last week. Not that they won, more so in the fashion that they won in dominating fashion. Let's see Daniel Jones, which I think he was the right choice for the Colts. We all like the Colts in our preseason previews to win that division. And I said that he's going to be the quarterback for them this year sooner than later. Well, he started the season, and I think unless he gets injured, he'll be the quarterback all year. But let's see what he does in week 2 against what I feel is an elite defense. Give me Denver at a short number. I'm buying low. Give me the Broncos.
Marco, before I give out my best bet that is correlated with yours, please let everybody know what you have going on there at wagertalk.com.
Well, Kelly, we've got that special going site-wide at Wager Talk this week. It's called the Weekend Warrior. You can pick up Saturday and Sunday's football plays for just $49. Pick your favorite capper, lock it in at that price. And why it's such a great deal? Well, that's going to include any 5% plays. Anybody that has a 5% play always sells those plays for $35. Yours truly is going to have a 5% this weekend. It will be my first one of the football season. I'm very selective with these plays. We have to have a play that just fits, checks all of the boxes. How about over the last 19 months, 31-13 with those 5% plays. So jump on board the Weekend Warrior. You'll get every play I have this week. And going back to last year, number 2 in football combined, college and pro, in Money One at Wager Talk.
All right, I mentioned that my best bet was correlated to Marco's, and it kind of is. Who looked worse last week? Yeah, well, I know. I like betting hot garbage teams from Florida. If you guys check out the college football edition of Bet On, and I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins this week because they could not have looked worse week 1. Tua sucks. Fire Mike Daniel. Dolphins Twitter was going absolutely nuts and still is freaking out. One of the things I love about the Westgate Superbook is their look-ahead lines. This one was 2.5. Let's take a step back. What part of the Patriots loss last week looked good? Small sample size, but the Patriots absolutely owned by the Dolphins. 7-0 in the last 7 games. 4-0, 4 out of the last 7 they've covered. 3-1 in the last 4 seasons. With Tua, they're at home against the Patriots. I'm sorry. New England's offense, every time I saw them in the red zone, it's because that's all I watch on Sundays, just kept sputtering and stalling. That team got lucky with that fluky touchdown on the goal line fumble. Drake May, I don't think he's the answer there. I think everybody needs to calm down and realize Tua is going to be okay. He was missing his left tackle for the better part of that game. He should be back for Sunday. It's not going to be as hot as I'd like it to be there in Miami for this one, but it's still going to be a spot where I lay the -1 with the Miami Dolphins and the biggest overreaction from week 1. That's it, guys. Let's throw up that recap graphic. Thank you to VR. Thank you to Marco. You guys are absolutely the best, bringing the heat every single week here on Bet On It. All right, for you to scroll to the end, the least you can do is give us that thumbs up, press that like button, and jump in the comment section. What do you love about the show? What do you hate? Sorry that I wore a turtleneck this week, but we had to change up the vibes because I have been absolutely hot garbage. No, it's not hot garbage. Yeah, that's right. Ralph Michaels TNA. If you guys missed it, it has its own standalone segment here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel now. And of course, if you missed the college football edition of Bet On It, we got lots of barking dogs. And of course, best bets, some of that steam from VR. And maybe the deli's open there as well. Have a great week, guys. And until next week, let's bet on it.
Welcome. I am Ralph Michaels, NFL Week 2 TNA. That means trends and angles. This is the Wager Talk NFL TNA report. Segment 1, we're going to talk about teams that won their season opener and lost their season opener. Segment 2, we're going to talk about division teams with double revenge. And make sure you stay tuned to segment number 3. We're finishing off with 3 NFL systems that have cashed 80%, 87.5%, and 81.2%. Hit that like button and let's get right to it. Remember, all of these charts will be loaded on my Twitter. We'll be uploading the video there. So if you need to relook at any of these charts, feel free to do so. Simply, I wanted to go to the basics to start off this video. I went back to 2021, so we have the last 4 seasons. Teams that lost their season opener have gone 55% against the spread. Teams that won their season opener have gone 44.8% against the spread. Pretty simple, guys. Again, they're not wow numbers, but 55% will make you money. And hitting 45% will certainly burn through your bankroll very quickly. When you see the chart, you're going to see it doesn't matter if you're off a loss. If you're off a loss away, off a loss at home, off a loss as a favorite, or off a loss as a dog, all of those are between 53.6% and 55.6%, all within a 2% straddle there. That's if you're off a loss. If you're off a win, again, you're 45% ATS. If you're off an away win or a home win, it doesn't matter. You're within 1.5%. If you're off a win as a favorite, you are actually 18 and 17, 51.4%. And if you're off a win as a dog, those teams have only gone 35% against the spread in game number 2. Now, I do want to mention, we've looked at teams off a loss. That's a positive. Off wins, that's a negative. How about if we match them up? Going back to 2009, teams in game 2 off a loss, playing teams off a win, are 57.5%. And that applies to Atlanta, Carolina, Houston, Kansas City, the New York Jets, New Orleans, Seattle, and Tennessee. I want to break out 2 subsets as well about those numbers we talked about. Not very big sample sizes from the last 4 years, but again, I'll share the data. Hopefully it helps you make a positive decision. Going back to 2017, I went back a little further on this just to check it out, and they were the same type of percentages. Teams that lost at home in the season opener and are now home again, like the Jets and the Saints, they've only cashed 31% against the spread. You would think, oh my God, you lost your season opener at home. You're now playing in front of your home fans. Guess what, guys? Again, it's been a play against. So 31% ATS says to fade the Jets and fade the Saints. But if you lost at home and now you're on the road, getting away from home, getting away from those pissed off fans has been a positive. Those teams have gone 62.5%. And if you exclude those teams that lost at home and are on the road, exclude the big road dogs. If you're a road dog of 8 or more, it hasn't been good. But if you're an away dog of +1 to +7.5, Those teams have gone 71% against the spread. That's the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Bears. Now let's take a look at NFL teams playing with double revenge. These are division teams playing the first game of the season after losing both games last year. Well, if you have double revenge, if you lost both games in your division, you are 46% against the spread since 2017. If you lost both games last year and you are now home against your division, it's even worse. You've only covered 42.6%. And if you lost both games to your division foe last year, and now you're a home favorite, 27 and 55, 33% against the spread. 3 teams apply. Those teams that are in a 33% ATS situation as a home favorite against teams that have beaten both times last year. It applies to the Jaguars and 49ers this week, and it does apply to Arizona in week number 4. So those are fade spots, Houston and San Fran this upcoming week, and, San Fran and Jacksonville this week, and the Arizona Cardinals in week number 4. And if you have double revenge, playing your division opponent on the road, you're 48.2%, and away favorites and away dogs were about the same percent, so I didn't even need to break it down. So every situation of you having double revenge and now playing that opponent for the first time this season, all are in the negative roles. Here in segment number 3, we got some wow numbers, guys. Again, I know you like wow numbers. I know they're 80% plus, but remember, never base a play strictly because you have a trend or an angle. It should only be part of the entire handicapping. The situations, the schedules, the matchups, the injuries, all of that has to go into it with, again, trends and angles being a portion of that final determination. I do want to mention, guys, a big NFL 5% this week. Let me share a few numbers for you. My football 4% and 5% plays, 21 and 4, 84%. My NFL teasers 4% and higher, 7 and 0, 100%, and 14 and 1, 93%, going all the way back to November 2023. Last year in the NFL, 5 top-rated 5%. I went 5 and 0. Don't buy that 5% though, guys, this week. It's $35. We have an incredible Weekend Warrior football special. Get all my college football on Saturday, all my NFL on Sunday for just $49. That's only $14 more than the price of a 5% release. And hit that like button, please. Make sure you're following Wager Talk on all the social media networks. And if there's a trend you want to see run, please share in the comments, and hopefully you'll be making an appearance on an upcoming NFL TNA show very soon. All right, let's close down segment number 3 with 3 trends, all 80% or higher. Since 2014, teams that are winless in the NFL on the road as a small dog or a favorite, like the Patriots and the Bears, have gone 32, 8, and 2, 80%. So all you have to do is be off a home loss as a favorite, and now you're on the road as a favorite or a small dog, and you're winless. So again, this doesn't apply to only this week. This trend continues, so write it down and keep track of those winless teams to see if it occurs. 32 covers 8 ATS losses, 80% system, New England and Chicago. This one is specifically for game 2. You're an away favorite. You are off a win as a home favorite. And you are either a dog or a favorite to -7. Those teams, like the Eagles, the Broncos, and the Rams, not a big sample size, guys, going back to 2016, but they are only 2, 14, and 2. So the Eagles, Broncos, and Rams, all an away favorite up to -6.5. Off a win as a home favorite in game number 2, 2 and 14 ATS, 12.5%. And the final. This one makes the most sense out of anything we have here today. You're playing game number 2. You're playing a division opponent, and you lost to a division opponent in game 1. I mean, you start the first 2 games of the season 0-2 against division foes, you're basically out of the race. Well, not basically out of it. You still have a shot, but you understand my gist. So those teams, like the Browns, the Bears, the Lions, the Giants, and the Cowboys, that all played division games in week 1 and lost and are now playing division opponents again. But let's remember this. The Bears and Lions are playing each other, as are the Giants and Cowboys. So there's only one true system, one true team that follows this system. It is the Cleveland Browns, and they have gone 26, 6, and 2, 81.2%. Again, it doesn't get simpler. You lost your season opener against a division foe. You are playing a division opponent game 2. Doesn't matter, home, away, favorite dog. 26 and 6, 81.2%. Cleveland falls into that category. I hope you enjoyed this week's NFL TNA. Leave those comments. Leave those suggestions. I'm happy to run them. Sometimes numbers don't work out, but that's fine. Knowing the data is all that matters. If it's a 50% trend, you know not to shade it one way or the other. If it's a positive trend, you put a check mark next to the teams you might like. If it's a negative trend, you put a minus sign next to the teams you are looking to fade. It's that simple. Have a great NFL week number 2. Make sure to check out my college football TNA video for college football week number 3, and I'll be back next week.
It's just the tip time. Let's do a little stock watch after week 1 of the NFL season. And there's a team that was lined as a 10.5 win team. They're division favorites, and I'm viewing them as fade only right now. That's the San Francisco 49ers. You know, bettors respect Kyle Shanahan. They respect Robert Saleh as a defense coordinator. Their schedule is very easy. They won and covered week 1. Everything's fine, right? Hell no. Last year, San Fran, one of the most injured teams in the NFL. This year, San Fran, one of the most injured teams in the NFL. I'm not even going to talk about Brock Purdy yet, who, by the way, Brock Purdy threw the game-losing interception in the end zone for San Fran. Watch the play if you don't believe me. But the third-string tight end, Jake Tongas, made an unbelievable game-winning catch to just save Purdy and save the Niners. But forget about Purdy for a minute, who's now injured. Look at the receiving core. Juwan Jennings, you know, he's got a shoulder injury. Don't know if he's going to play. George Kittle just went on IR. Brandon Ayuk already on IR. Demarcus Robinson suspended. The offensive line, big concerns as well. Now Purdy's hurt. They just cut Jake Moody. Kicker issues for San Francisco. And haven't even talked about the defense. I mean, Nick Bosa won the game for them with the strip sack versus Sam Darnold after the defense tried really hard to blow the lead. You know, Saleh's getting a boatload of credit for the win versus Seattle, but this is a defense that's loaded with question marks. Here's a quote from Christian McCaffrey. Quote, "I think we have a really new team." You know, and after last week, there have a bunch of new guys come out for the first time together and play with each other and got out a gritty win. That's a big deal. Okay, so they're fat and happy and confident and not that good. I had 14 teams power rated higher than San Francisco before the Purdy injury news. And Purdy not going to play this week. It doesn't look like he's going to play this week. So, this is a team right now that's being priced here. I think they should be priced here. Maybe they blow it in New Orleans. Maybe they don't. But San Fran, more than any other factor, this is not a team I want to lay points with. They're 1-0 straight up. They're 1-0 ATS. I'm expecting a sub 500 ATS mark over the next 5 weeks. And that's how we grade these stock watches. The next 5 games ATS, I'll be looking to bet against San Francisco. We got a great promo offer this week. First timers. I understand lots of you have been around before, but if you're a first timer, have never bought from wagertalk.com before, check out this offer. Use promo code Teddy69. It's going to get you 7 days, all access, every play, every day, every sport. This time of year, I'm doing baseball, I'm doing college football and NFL. $69. That includes all 5% big tickets, all 4%. Everything's included. No nonsense, no bait and switch. Again, Teddy69 at checkout. 7-day all access pass. First timers, get on board if you haven't done so already. We appreciate those likes. We appreciate the follows. We appreciate the comments very, very much. Hit that like button and your work is done. Thank you. Comment below. Let us know what you think. And of course, if you haven't done so, more than 200,000 of you already following Wager Talk TV on YouTube. Join and get instant alerts every time these videos go live.
This week on Bet On It, we've got Barking Dogs. Of course, we're going to go over some of those big matchups in the SEC, as well as some of those primetime slated games that maybe should be ranked versus ranked. We'll get into that as well. Of course, we got best bets for you at the end of the show. Let's get into it. Bet On It, college football week 3. Kelly Stewart here. You guys know me as Kelly in Vegas. Marco D'Angelo, contrary to what the comments say, does not get to dictate my outfits. We're going to cover them up today. You know why? Because we've been getting killed in college football, and something's got to change the mojo. We got VR fresh off a nice night there in the UFC. Comment section loving him as well there on the YouTube Shorts. So if you guys are watching on your phone, be sure to check out that feed. We're going to get right into it, guys, with some of these primetime games. We're going in TV time order, so I'm up first. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, Tennessee, 3.5-point underdog at Georgia, total 49.5. I'm just going to come out and say it. The spread is too low, okay? I get it. Austin P, not exactly a college football powerhouse, but we've seen Kirby Smart do this before. He just doesn't cover as a big favorite against inferior opponents. Marshall, come on, guys. I don't think we downgrade Georgia just yet because the Dogs refuse to run up the score here. I made this game 6.5. This one opened 5.5, 4.5, now down to 3.5. I'm not going to get into the AP voters, but let's just say that maybe they put these two teams in the top 15 for the Mouse Network. I'm sorry, Vols. You guys just aren't in my top 25 power ratings. I think this is a buy low spot on the Bulldogs, who have won and covered 7 of the last 8 meetings. I apologize. They've won the last 8, 7-1 against the spread. I'm going with Georgia here. Marco D'Angelo, and I think you kind of said, hey, if this one hits 3, I'll be on Georgia as well. We'll get to Marco here in a minute, though. Ace, VR, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. A game that, boy, oh boy, are we excited to see. Saturday, Miami at home taking on USF. The favorite killer. They beat Boise State. They beat Florida last week. We'll get into that game here in a little bit. Miami, 17.5-point favorite, total 56.5.
I laid the 17 with Miami. I released that to my subscribers as well. I thought the line was a little bit short. Bottom line, Miami's a little bit higher ranked than they should be. They're not a top 5 team. That's the bottom line. I mean, having the impressive win against Notre Dame and then beating Bethune Cookman the way they did, impressive, but they're not a top 5 power rated team. Fortunately for them, though, USF is not nearly in the top 25. They're barely in the top 40 as far as power ratings go. Forget the rankings. The rankings are going to reflect a team's record, not a team's strength. So you have an undefeated record 5, 6, 7 weeks in, you're going to be in the top 25 for sure, whether it's warranted or not. And I think that's the case here with South Florida. They're coming off arguably their biggest win in school history, beating Florida for the first time, big brother in the state. Then what happens? They follow that up. I mean, the week prior, they beat a top 25 team. Then they beat Florida. They've never done either of those two things, beating a top 25 team in back-to-back weeks and beating Florida. And now you're facing a Miami team that's just running really well. And I just think they're just way too physical for South Florida. They're going to systematically break them down as the game goes on. As long as they don't make mistakes, that's the key. Limit the turnovers, limit the foolish mistakes, the penalties, and it shouldn't be a very difficult game for the Miami side. I mean, listen, this team is dominant at home. As long as they're able to slow down that dual threat quarterback, which I think they will by putting pressure, I think they're going to just start to break away with margin, especially in the second half. Again, South Florida has Miami's undivided attention, and that's a bad thing for them come Saturday. I don't think Miami's going to look past them, and this team shows up. They beat them by 4 touchdowns. I'll lay the points with Miami all day.
VR, you make a very good point. Last year, I said I liked South Florida against this Miami team, and in the first half, they looked really good. I think if you like USF, which I know a lot of underdog bettors do, maybe look towards the first half. I'm with you, VR. Unfortunately, I think Miami will pull away there in a second. VR, given those nice tidbits, Marco always bringing the snacks. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame is now a 6.5-point favorite. 49.5. Marco, what little bites do you have here on this game?
Oh, Kelly, Texas A&M does look like a live dog, and that's why you're seeing some money come in on them. But I'm not going to go that way. I like Notre Dame, and here's one of the big things. They played 2 weeks ago. They had a tough loss, losing that game to Miami. I'm glad they had a week off to prepare for this game. How often do we say, when you play a big game that you can lose that same game twice, you come back and play the next week? So this is actually an advantage for Notre Dame. It also gives Marcus Freeman a chance to correct the things that were wrong the first week and have that extra week of practice and game plan. Notre Dame, if you look at the stats in that Miami game, whether you like Miami or not, with the schedule they played so far, they did beat Notre Dame, but the stats were dead even. It was the 2 turnovers by Notre Dame that was the difference in that game. I think they'll clean that up for this week. Excuse me. Then you look at Texas A&M at who they've played. They've played 2 cupcakes so far, and, they beat up on them. So what do you take away from that? One alarming thing I take away from that is in the Texas San Antonio game, and granted, that was a big brother versus little brother, and we always talk about, those little brother schools get up for it. They ran the football for 203 yards against Texas A&M. If they can do that, Notre Dame should be able to have success on the ground. And if they have success on the ground in this game, it's going to open up the passing game later, and Notre Dame will be able to hit some big plays. A lot of people are going to look at the revenge angle. How many times have I told you revenge is the most overused term in sports betting? Didn't end their season last year for Texas A&M. It was the first week of the season, if you remember when they played. So I'm not worried about the revenge factor at all with this one. Notre Dame last year dominated on the ground, and I believe they'll be able to do that again. And Texas A&M, when they're away from College Station, they were 2-3 straight up last year on the road. They struggle against the spread, whether it's a road game or a neutral site. They're just 3-9 against the spread their last 12 away from College Station. Give me Notre Dame. I got them 31-20.
Well, thank you to Marco there. I saw that in the spreadsheet early on. I had A&M on my long list, but I think you're right. This is a good buy low spot here on the Irish. We're going to move right along. I've already got it written down. I hope you guys have your pen and pad ready because VR Steam Report is coming in hot.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Again, another good week for the wise guys in college football. 3 straight winning weeks. See if it could continue. Here's what they jumped on already this week. Thursday night game, under 54.5, 53.5, 52.5, NC State, Wake Forest. Move on to Friday's primetime action. Over 43 and 44, Colorado, Houston. Kansas State, multiple accounts, multiple groups at different numbers, from +1 all the way to -1.5. They love the Kansas State side. And finally, laying the 15 with UCLA. That's opposite the public. I'm already starting to see some recreational bettors opposite UCLA on Friday night. Let's move on to Saturday. Northwestern, game 118, plus the 28.5, 133. Pitt, -5.5, -6. 135, Washington State, plus the 6.5. 153, Florida Atlantic, plus 3.5 and 3. 155, over 52.5 to 54.5. App State, Southern Miss. 183, Duke, plus 3 and plus 2. Went through that key number. And finally, 195, Minnesota, -1, -1.5. Minnesota money line as well. So early so far this week. Still got a couple of days to go. But that's some of the early steam for Saturday's action.
All right, we got some barking dogs for you guys. Up next is the Delhi Open, and of course, some best bets. Head over to oddslogic.com. You guys can get a 7-week free trial using ACE's promo code, oddslogic.com/ACE. Marco, here was a team that I looked at. I text our good friend John Murray there over at the Westgate Superbook, and I said, talk me off of West Virginia. And he said, you're a better woman than me if you can bet that team. Last week, a lot of people said Ohio was the look-ahead spot here before Pitt, and they were right. Got to cash that +4. I had 0 money line dollars, but I appreciate the nod there. Talk to me why you're looking at the Mountaineers here. I know this is a old-school rivalry that has been revitalized in your backyard.
And it is called the Backyard Brawl, and it's called that for a reason. These two teams don't like each other. And Kelly, yes, I was one of those teams, guys, that was on Ohio U last week. I also was on Central Michigan for the same spot for those two teams that Pitt and West Virginia looking ahead to this week. West Virginia did go down. Pitt got the cover. Well, that's another story for how they got that one on Saturday. But looking at this one, and I just got done telling you in the last one where I don't look at, revenge. It's an overused thing. Well, I said there's certain times that revenge is a factor in my playbook. The top one is if it's ended your season. This is not that case. The second one, though, is when it's a rivalry. And this is a big rivalry between Pitt and West Virginia. They renewed this rivalry. This will be the 4th straight year that they played this rivalry since it was suspended. As you know, these two teams went different ways with conference affiliations. However, this will be the final one until I think 2029. So West Virginia wants to even the score from last year. Trust me. They had a big lead in that game last year against Pitt, and they dominated time of possession against Pitt last year, 36 minutes to 24 minutes. And yet Pitt was able to come back. Eli Holstein with that big comeback win at Pittsburgh. Now it's at West Virginia. I've got to look to the dog in this rivalry. These games have all been tight. The last 8 meetings between these two teams, 6 of the 8 were decided by 7 points or less. And I know you're going to look at that and people are going to just have the knee-jerk reaction. West Virginia lost to a MAC school last week. Pitt destroyed a MAC school last week. Pitt's win was not as big as it was. They punched the last touchdown in with under a minute to play in that game when they were up 21 to make it a 28-point win. And they threw the football on that final drive 4 times up 21 points. So I think it's time for a little reverse karma to come back this week against head coach Pat Narduzzi. I'm going with West Virginia. I think this is going to be a dogfight down to the final possession. Let's call it in what should be a high-scoring game, 31-30, West Virginia. And hopefully our buddy John Murray will be happy with that result.
I might have to join you, Marco. God, this team is just so frustrating, and the quarterback play is so abysmal. VR, a game that I had on my long list, but truthfully, I know nothing about Delaware. I know nothing about this team, but I do know that I had UConn last week, and I still don't know how I lost that football game. Tell me why you think they're going to lose that Syracuse game twice.
Well, that was a tough loss for them in overtime, and now you got to go play a Delaware team, which can't be too motivated for. With that said, the path to victory for Delaware is obvious. Throw the football. That's Syracuse's weakness. Unfortunately for Delaware, that's where they're strongest. If you look, the yards pass differential for them is positive compared to negative for UConn. And with UConn, they're going to have their most success running the football. So as long as the Delaware is able to sustain some drives, not give UConn that short field, this is a game they could keep it within 2 scores for sure. Again, as long as they stay consistent on offense, those drives, they can't have those quick 3 and outs. They have to have rhythm. That's the key because they are going to depend on their passing game. So as long as they stick to the fundamentals and let Minchucci, however you say that quarterback's last name, win or lose the game for them, they're going to be just fine. Again, I thought they played well against Colorado, as good as you could play, having to go to Colorado, not an easy place to go and play. And because they weren't able to put up a lot of points, I think we're getting more here than we should. Add in home field advantage and defense that didn't look all that bad. I think they do hold it close. Give me Delaware, take the 10 points, small sprinkle there. So far, the dog bets are 2-0. We hit a plus 400 dog, a plus, what was it last week? Plus one, it was a small dog. This one's a little bigger, but I think the plus 10, we're safe.
You know, I would love to hit an outright underdog just once. Okay, I'm done complaining. I am going to complain about this, though. I've got the odds logic screen up, and let's see. This game's already down to 4.5. Vanderbilt was my 5.5-point barking dog, now down to 4.5. So somebody agrees with me. Look, South Carolina is in a 16-game streak, right? 16 straight they've won in this series. So sit here and say, oh, Vanderbilt on the road catching less than a touchdown. Well, it's really fishy. And I know the Gamecocks are really excited. Lenora Sellers, give them the Heisman. But I think we need to back it up here. I have not been impressed with South Carolina's offense. They've scored 17 points the last 2 games. And, in that loss to Illinois in the bowl game as well. They needed 2 touchdowns on special teams and 1 touchdown on defense to get past South Carolina State last week. And, a punt return to get the cover versus Virginia Tech and Atlanta. I think we need to pump the brakes on the Gamecocks here. I think Vanderbilt has had this game circled. Sure, South Carolina's covered 6 of the last 7. I think Vanderbilt gets one back here. Give me Vanderbilt plus 4.5. Give me Vanderbilt on the money line. You guys have not checked out our friends over at the Gold Sheet, wt.buzz/GTS. wt.buzz/GTS. Gold Sheet's top football selections went 7-1 this past weekend on Wager Talk. And truthfully, it could have been 8-0 if that Ravens team kept a 15-point lead. But the Gold Sheet prides itself on being one of the first football newsletters to market each week. They give analysis on NFL and, of course, college football. And then they update it throughout the week. Once the injury news is widely available, the weather forecasts are set. Gold Sheet, head over to wagertalk.com to get their premium selections. Speaking of premium, Marco's Deli has been awesome. You guys have missed it. Marco puts out a deli video of teams that didn't make bet on it, but they are still sandwich worthy. 4-1 last week, and Duke looked good there in the first half, Marco, and well, that was about all she wrote. What can people expect from you seeing this every single week besides here on Bet On It?
Yeah, Kelly, we do both the NFL and college. So obviously last week we only had the one play in the NFL because it was week 1, not many sandwich spots to look at or trap games. But I break these games down for you. The video generally is up late on Thursday or early Friday. And I always tell people, I can give you a winner and I can make you a unit. But if I give you an angle or something, and I take you off of the loser that you had, I actually did better for you because I saved you 1.1 units with the juice. So it's a very informative video. We pound all of the games, in a quick fashion, run it off, in 10 to 12 minute show, and you'll get anywhere from 5 to 7 free plays each week from me. So check that out on the Wager Talk TV channel.
Marco,
Deli's open this week.
I know the deli's open this week, and I totally screwed up. I want to go back to barking dogs because you just mentioned actionable info, and you text Ralph before the show. Our good friend Ralph, he does a TNA segment here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel as well. Can you please tell me what you called and asked him about the Delaware plus 10 side?
Yeah. Yes, Kelly, we're all in agreement on Delaware in this one. And I always told you guys about the angle of lose the same game twice. Well, where that really comes into play is teams that are coming off an overtime loss. Last season, if you're a favorite the following week after you lost in overtime, those teams went just 2-7 against the spread. It's the epitome of lose the same game twice. So just add that to VR's already on Delaware. You already like Delaware. I had Delaware on the trap games spot, and you'll probably see Delaware on the Marco's Deli on Friday as well. So give you the triple endorsement on Deli.
Love
on
it.
Delaware from the Deli.
There you go, Delaware from the Deli. Let's get into this week's Deli play. As you mentioned, they have been doing so well. You got a big old fat sandwich for us this week. They're in Denton, Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this one, and I think a lot of people are going to like the dog in this one, and why not? We have two teams that are 2-0 doing battle here, but the knee-jerk reaction is going to be whenever you see North Texas and Washington State, even though Washington State, was one of those teams that got left behind in the Pac-12, it's still a much bigger name than North Texas. So you're looking at these two teams, and you're getting the points with Washington State. Yeah, you're going to grab them. And they're just coming off beating San Diego State 36-13. That was a popular play last week, San Diego State. A lot of people were on them as for what, different reasons. I can tell you the San Diego State team this year is not the San Diego State team that we have seen in the past. They're down, and Washington State took advantage of them in that game and rolled, but they were at home. Now you've got North Texas here. They went on the road and barely escaped winning. They beat Western Michigan 33-30 as a 12.5-point favorite. You've heard me talk many times. I love taking big favorites that had a scare the week before. You're going to get a focused effort from them. Gives the coach, firepower, to light that fire under them, work them hard in practice. And I got to figure that when they went into that game, they might have been feeling just a little fat and sassy because the week before that Western Michigan game, they played at home. They played a little brother in the state. Normally, North Texas is the little brother in these in-state matchups, but they played Lamar, and they beat the crap out of them, 51-0. I think they got caught looking ahead to this one. Switch it to this week. Who's the team that's going to be feeling fat and sassy and might get caught looking ahead? Well, it's Washington State. They come off that game that I told you last week where they beat San Diego State. But, oh boy, look at the schedule. Who do they have on deck? Yeah, one of the teams that left them behind in the Pac-12. And, it's their big brother of the state. They play Washington next week. That was always the last game of the season, the Apple Cup every year. They're going to be looking ahead to that one. It's a horrible scheduling spot for Washington State to go to North Texas this week. I am going to go with North Texas in this one. I'm going to lay the points. Washington State held their first two opponents to 10 and 13 points. But again, this is the best offense they've seen so far. Look for North Texas to roll 38-23.
All right, guys, it's time to get into those best bets. We're going to let VR go first. VR, before you get into it, please let everybody know what you've got going on at wagertalk.com.
Yeah, big weekend for me, especially in football. And we got combat sports as well. Here's what's up. I have the Saturday UFC Noche packaged with the Canelo Alvarez and Crawford fight. So that's a combat sports package that's up for Saturday. It'll have all the UFC and the Canelo and Crawford fight. I have Saturday's college football pass up with a 5% big move on that in there. And then I have Sunday's NFL package as well. Currently number one in college football 2025, number one combined college football NFL 2025. And I thought this was going to be one of the best seasons I've had in football. So far, so good. Jump on board. Steam Room Sunday. We had 5 teaser bets on Sunday. 4 of those cashed for us. We'll have some more this Sunday before kickoff. So join us. It'll be good. Good times. Good times. Now for my best bet. This is going to be scary for bettors, but I got to fade Texas Tech here because they're just moving up too quickly as far as the rankings go, and it's just not warranted. They're not a top 25 team. I think when the season ends, that will come to fruition. So far, they've just been dominant against bad teams, averaging 60-plus points, putting up 600 yards of offense. And I get it. Oregon State's not a world beater by any stretch, but they're going to put up more resistance than Texas Tech has faced to date. And here's another spot where they just can't make those mistakes. More importantly, Oregon State, they have the offense to sustain some drives. And if they're able to sustain some drives, keep Texas Tech's offense on the sidelines, it's very covered. They could cover this 24. I thought that was a little bit too high. The total I also thought was high as well, but it seems like the market's disagreeing with me. I thought 61 was just too high of a number. And I thought it was based more on recency bias than anything else. So with that said, as long as Oregon State's able to put up points like they've showed so far this year with their offense, where they're averaging around 20 plus points a game, 400 plus yards overall, and they got a good, really good passing game. I just think this is a spot where the defense needs to show up a little bit. The back door will be open, and I like Oregon State to get in there and get that cover at plus 23.5, plus 24.
Lots of points there in Lubbock, Texas. Marco D'Angelo, your best bet for college football week 3. But before you get into it, tell me what specials you're running over at wagertalk.com.
Well, Kelly, we've got a special going site-wide this weekend. It's a $49 weekend warrior for football. And guys, you can pick your favorite capper, get all of his plays for Saturday and Sunday, $49. I've got a 5% going this weekend. It's going to be the first 5% of the season. As you know, we don't release a lot of them. 31-13 on our 5% plays over the last 19 months. So be sure to check out that weekend warrior package. Also, this week, college football, this is the time of the year. I always tell you, the further we get along into the season, the stronger my selections become because I got stuff to work with. And I think there's going to be an overreaction, and we're getting a ton of line value in this game. And I'm looking at Liberty minus 6.5. This thing to me should be closer to 10 than just under the touchdown. It'll probably go to 7 by the weekend. So go ahead and get down on this one now. Liberty's coming off a loss to Jacksonville State, and people are going to look and say, hey, they lost to Jacksonville State 34-24. They're going to think this team's not that good. I can tell you they beat themselves in that game. They had over 500 yards of offense, 534 to 395 to be exact. 2 turnovers cost them in that one. Now, the one problem that Liberty has shown so far is the ability to stop the run. That's not going to be a problem against Bowling Green. In the first 2 games of the season, Bowling Green has a grand total of 256 yards on the ground in 2 games. That was with 77 carries. That's just 3.32 yards per play. And one of those 2 opponents was Lafayette. When they take a look at this Liberty offense, which is a balanced offense, you hear me talk about 200 club members all the time. They just missed being that. They're 197 on the ground, 266 through the air. That balanced attack is going to have a field day against this Bowling Green team. And let's also look at the spot for Bowling Green. This is a team that's coming off an in-state rivalry game last week against Cincinnati. Those 2 schools only 100 some miles apart, Cincinnati being one of those big brother schools. That was a big game for them. And then look at who they have on deck. They've got to go to Louisville. Horrible spot. I love the bad spot for Bowling Green. the pissed off team that I'm going to get with Louisville or with Liberty for coming off an upset loss on the road. This is just a perfect storm for me. Take advantage of Liberty. This is one of those buy low, sell high situations, and I'm buying low on Liberty. Take them minus the 6.5. I've got them winning this one 34-17.
Woo! I'm just waiting for the comment section because this is going to be gross. And you guys can just go ahead and tell me now how much you hate me. And I kind of hate myself for this. I do. I gave out Florida as a double-digit favorite last week. We got the best of the number by 1.5 points, and they lost outright at home in the Swamp. I tweeted, Billy Napier, I'm done with you. I have seen enough. Except I had this game circled for my 3-team money line parlay all the way back in July. Yes, I go through the schedules early. Yes, I still like Florida here. I get it. Go ahead. Just say whatever you want to say. But you guys know as well as anyone, last week's result was downright embarrassing, not only for myself, but for the Florida Gators. And this is a team that possesses all of the talent in the world. Now, here's my question. How are they going to respond getting punched in the mouth by USF? Were they looking ahead to this LSU team? Quite possibly. How good is this LSU team? Lots of chatter, lots of love to start the season. Garrett Nussmeier getting lots of Heisman chatter. I don't know. Did you guys watch that Clemson game? I was with Marco. I took the +5 when it hit. Wasn't that impressive of a win after we watched Clemson struggle for 3 quarters versus Troy. Look, I'm going to say it. Give me the better defense plus the points. Florida +7.5 is my best bet for this week. And yeah, I'm going to put in my 3-team money line parlay. I think they can go in and get the win there in Death Valley. Let me have it. I deserve it. I deserve all the hates in the comment for wearing a turtleneck and giving out the Florida Gators as my best bet for the 2nd week in a row. All right, bring it on. Bring it on. All right, let's bring back in Marco D'Angelo, NVR. You guys are awesome. Thank you for talking me off of some of these ugly square underdogs and giving us some really good information there on the ones that are barking. You guys can check us out on the NFL edition of Bet On It. We'll see you guys here shortly. Put up that recap graphic for us, Dan. Everybody's been asking for it back. It is back, even for you that cheat and scroll all the way to the end. The least you can do is give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of Bet On It. If you're looking for Ralph's TNA, you can get it right here. Standalone segment on the Wager Talk YouTube channel every single week. And of course, here is your NFL edition of Bet On It.
I am going to start with an 80% system. I am going to end with an 80% system. And I have another 80% system in between. Welcome. I am Ralph Michaels. This is the Wager Talk College Football TNA Report for September the 10th, week 3 of college football. If you're new to TNA, it is exactly what you think it is. Trends and angles. I have 6 of them for you today. Let's break down first 2 over-under situations to look at for this upcoming week in college football. Number 1, what happens if we have a huge college football favorite with a relatively low total? I went back to 2010. I looked at teams that were a favorite of -31 or more with a total of 48 or less. Since 2010, those teams have gone 56 and 13 over under. That is 81.2%. And they have gone over by over 10 points per game. That's massive when you're looking at ATS records. When you have a margin that is double digits, it shows you just how big some of those covers have been. It says to play the over in Iowa and Massachusetts this week. Iowa about a 35-point favorite, the total about 43.5 or 44. So it certainly applies. Iowa and UMass in an over situation that is 81.2%. Now we're going to look at non-conference games with a line of a dog of 24 or more, and the total is 14 points more than the ATS line or less. Example, Iowa is a 35.5-point favorite. We talked about it in the other situation. Their total is 43. So that is only an 8-point difference. So this is taking games that are within, when the side and the total are within 14 points with a line over 24.5. And again, a 14-point difference or less. This is another over-under situation. And while some of them overlap, they are 196 and 100 since 2010. That is 66.2% to the over. And again, it applies to the UMass Iowa over, and it also applies to UTEP or Texas. So situation 1, Iowa UMass over. Situation 2, also Iowa UMass over, but you have to remember, again, there are many games that fit both categories. So it's not really two separate trends on the same team. But again, that 66% over situation applies to UTEP and Texas. Let's look at our next two situations. This is conference specific. So, you're only going to get a few instances of this a year. In fact, there's been 21 occurrences since 2017. And even though the Big Ten has back-to-back national titles, from top to bottom, the SEC still is the premier conference with the deepest teams from number 1 to the worst team in the league. So what happens if an SEC team is off a loss at home as a favorite of -7 or higher? Well, we know Alabama was in that mix last week, and what did they do? Let's see. They weren't off a home loss, but they were off a loss as a favorite, and they rolled up ULM. So SEC teams off a loss as a home favorite of -7 or more. How about 25-6 against the spread? That is 81%. And those games have gone 10-20 with one push over under. That is 33% over under or 67% to the under. An SEC team usually has a good defense. If they're off a loss as a home favorite, those defenses tend to rise to the level of their competition. So 81% against the spread, 67% to the under. Who does it apply to? It applies to the Florida Gators. Situation number 4. Good defenses in back-to-back games. This goes all the way back to 2008. We got about 116 game sample size. And it's simply this. An away team that has held back-to-back opponents to 14 points or less. So your defense is playing well. You are now going on the road. And on the road, you have to be a favorite of 18.5 or more. So you are a dominant team. Great defensive presence. Those teams against the spread, 75-41, 65%. And listen to this. I've been checking trends out for 20 years. I don't know if I've ever had two records with a sample size of 160 games with the exact same ATS and exact same over-under record. The ATS record, 75-41, 65% against the spread. The over-under record, 75-41, 65% against the spread. Amazing, how that works out. 4 teams apply to bet on and to take a look at the over. This week, those teams, big away favorites, held foes to 2 touchdowns or less the last 2 weeks. Utah, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Oregon. 2 quick notes on that. On the ATS record, if you're looking during the first 2 months of the season, that actually jumps up to 69.6%. And if you're looking at the over-under record and you toss out high totals of 65 and higher, the over also goes to 69%. So 65% ATS, 65% over-under, with higher ATS subsets the first 2 months, higher over-under subsets with a total under 64. In our third segment of this situation, let's take a look at how teams do after losing to an FCS foe, and let's see how poor defenses do. First, 3 teams lost to FCS opponents last week: Massachusetts, Eastern Michigan, and Marshall. So in your mind, do you think, wow, these teams suck, they lost to an FCS team and they're going to play poorly? Or do you think these teams were embarrassed losing to an FCS team and they're going to bounce back? Well, here's the data. Let's see if you got it right. Teams since 2017 that have lost to an FCS opponent as a favorite are now 15, 26-1 against the spread. That is 36.6%. Those teams this week to fade: Massachusetts, Eastern Michigan, and Marshall. I also want to add, if the team lost as a favorite to an FCS foe and is now at home, the numbers get even worse. Marshall's the only team at home this week. Those records fall to 4-13, 23.5 ATS. Before I get to that final 80% system, do us a favor, hit the like button. If there's anything you want to see ran, please just leave a comment. I love reading through them. It gives me ideas, and hopefully you'll be making an appearance on this show with your suggested system or trend. And also, this week at Wager Talk, Weekend Warrior. Get Saturday and Sunday football for $49. I'm going to have a 5% NFL up by Thursday morning. That 5% is $35. Don't buy it, guys. The Weekend Warrior is $49. You get all of Saturday and all in Sunday. And let me just share a couple records for you. My football 4% and 5% best bets, 21-4, 84%. My NFL teasers rated 4% and higher, 7-0, 100%, and 14-1, 93%, going all the way back to November 2023. And last year in the NFL, I had 5 top-rated 5% plays. I went a perfect 5-0. Weekend Warrior, get me for $49 or get any of your favorite Wager Talk handicappers for all of Saturday's college football and all of Sunday's NFL plays. Well, we talked about teams that held their opponents to 14 points or less in segment number 2. We're going to finish it off with teams that have allowed back-to-back opponents to rush for over 6.5 yards per carry, and they are now a favorite, excluding huge favorites of 25 or more. So you just have to look at teams that allowed 6.5 yards per carry rushing in back-to-back games, and they're a favorite from -1 to -24. Those teams, like Georgia Southern this week, 13 ATS covers, 51 ATS losses. That is an 80% fade play. It says to back Jacksonville State and fade Georgia Southern this week. I hope you enjoyed my 6 college football TNA reports for week 3. Make sure you check out my NFL video as well. Check me out this weekend on the Weekend Warrior Special. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back. College football week number 4.